Thinking of the PlayStation exclusives that the Sony platform is known for, many people may think of the Resistance series. The series got its first installment with Resistance Fall of Man, which launched alongside the new PlayStation system on November 14, 2006. The game was published by Sony and developed by Insomniac Games, known for its games like Spyro and the Ratchet & Clank series. As of this recording, the game is nearly 12 years old. Much has happened to the gaming industry since its release. Does it hold up its gameplay with its age? Or is it a game that has long since been forgotten only to be remembered for being a PS3 launch title? When the game first launched, it was supposed to show off the true power of the PlayStation 3 with its futuristic HD resolution of 720p, which was a rarity to see in person in late 2006, with HD TVs at the time being too damn high in price. Resistance was developed using the Insomniac engine version 1, which was also used to make both Ratchet & Clank Up Your Arsenal and Going Commando on the past PS2 console. For the most part, the engine does show off what the PS3 can handle. Granted, this is an early look at what it can do with the console's extremely complex hardware compared to its main rival, the Xbox 360. Even though it's a console launch title, the game plays at a constant 30 frames per second and even dips during major fights. It wasn't until the later years of the PS3's lifespan and later Resistance installments did you really start to see the true power of the hardware.
The Chimeran threat began in Russia. The origin of the virus is unknown.
The game takes place during July 1951, set in a world where the entire Eastern world has gone to absolute shit, and now the Chimeran invasion has reached Great Britain, and for the most part the invasion is unopposed. It's not until an American soldier by the name of Nathan Hale, the player, starts kicking ass on every front he's sent to. On his first mission, he's infected but survives the infection, making him the first known man to survive the Chimeran disease that has shrouded the world. While the story is pretty straightforward and easy to guess from start to finish, for a first-person shooter, it does give details on what is happening in the universe throughout its linear progression and its hidden intels the player can collect along the way. I have found some of these intels to be indispensable when trying to figure out the universe Resistance is set in. One of my favorites was an anti-war pamphlet that stated for the US to stay out of foreign wars, even though this was an alien invasion. Yeah, like the US should stay out of it. Many questions I had with the universe were answered, like how the Chimeran creatures are created or how did they reproduce. To answer this, the game has a whole mission that walks you through the creation process that ultimately uses humans to make more Chimeran.
Over here! Over here! Help us! Get us the hell out of here!
Throughout the whole campaign, the player will only meet two characters who play a significant role throughout the campaign. Those two are Rachel Parker, who will from time to time give you orders on what to do. She also narrates the story during cutscenes. And then there's Lieutenant Stephen Cartwright, who in some missions accompanies you throughout the level. Unfortunately, he's only seen with you at the later stages of the game.
Mitchell to command. Site secure.
Found the cutscenes to have a nice mix of believable emotions while keeping to its semi-realistic art style. Something about each of these scenes had a certain charm to them. I can't really point the finger on it, but something about it made me want to go back and watch it. The gameplay overall is your generic first-person shooter with a few new additions by even today's standards. One of the first alien weapons that is given to the player is the bullseye. This weapon is the one I used most throughout the campaign, especially during boss fights, for its secondary fire. which shoots a dart that attaches to an enemy, and whenever you fire, your bullets will hit that enemy. There's also another weapon later in the game called the Hailstorm that does this to a greater extent, but without shooting the dart. I think these weapons are necessary for this campaign or in console shooters in general, because when using a controller to play a first-person shooter, let's be honest, if you're going to play an FPS, you'll want a mouse and keyboard for that unmatched precision. Once you have completed the game, you're given dual-wielded submachine guns to add to your arsenal for your next campaign run, if you choose to do so. These will lock on the enemies and make the crosshair look as if it turned into a Wii game. There's also a different weapon called the Auger that can shoot through walls and deploy shields that only the gun's bullet can go through. Likewise, there's also an enemy that is equipped with this weapon, which makes it extremely difficult to try and take cover and regenerate some health. Speaking of the health in this game, it is quite unique compared to other shooters in the genre, being that's a compromise between the health regeneration system and the health bar system. In that, if you lose a half square of health, you can restore that square but not taking damage for a certain amount of time. The health system is different on higher difficulty, where only the last bar is the only replenishable health you can get back. Throughout the game, I felt that many missions had parts that had way too many enemies for a player to handle and could get easily overwhelmed. I played the game on normal difficulty, and I can't imagine how people on the hardest difficulty got through the last couple of levels if I was struggling on normal. I guess I'm just bad. This was only solved when retrying the part and figuring out where to take cover, and sometimes finding ways to outsmart the AI, like shooting them from a distance. Overall, Resistance Fall of Man is a nice entry into the series if it's your first experience with the franchise. The only reason I'd say to pick this game up is if you are at all interested in the series or the timeline it's set in. If I had to score this game, I would give it a 7.5 out of 10, for it being a generic shooter, but its twist in gameplay and actually trying to explain something in the game's universe that the player wouldn't know without being told. The story left off on a cliffhanger, and only 2 years after the game's release we got Resistance 2, which I will also be reviewing at a later date for anyone who cares.